My name is Orlan Fernando Ramon Pinzon, and I am one of the lucky. I am alive, but many of my friends are dead. Every Sunday, my family goes to the cemetery to remember my cousins who lie there. Some of them were younger than I am when they died. In February 1976, in the night when we were sleeping, terremoto struck my village of Tecpan and all of Guatemala. It was like nothing I have ever known before. In the dark, the ground shook and the walls fell down. When the sun finally came up, my whole life had changed. I no longer had a home. In Tecpan, 3,000 people and 7,000 were injured. Just like my family, there were others who were alive, but they had no home. Guatemaltecos are strong people, but on that night, we were lost. You must call me Osmar. That is how I know to my friends. I will tell you how my life has changed since terremoto. When the earthquake struck at 4 o'clock in the morning, the walls did not fall on our beds, but our home was destroyed. Terremoto left nothing untouched. Our water was poisoned and our food was buried. We had no roofs to protect us from the sun. From that day on, we could never go back to the lives we had known before. When daylight came, we were told that my grandfather had been killed. I was tired and my body hurt. I did not know that in a few days, it would be the beginning of a whole new life for me. The soldiers of the Salvation Army came to Tecpan.
Immediately upon learning of the tragic disaster that had struck Guatemala, the Salvation Army mobilized its forces throughout the world and responded with personnel, food, tents, and relief supplies of every description. Our first concern was to meet the life support needs of a stricken people. This was in keeping with the traditional response of our organization, being at the place of need, at the time of need, and the point of need. We were there when needed.
The situation in Tecpan when we arrived was really chaotic. People were afraid. They were destitute, many of them. They'd spent many nights in the open, and they were really in need of our help. Our first endeavors were to reach as many people as we possibly could with food and clothing and medicines and blankets and things of this nature. And we discovered that the people were very receptive to us, and we found that they expressed their appreciation.
We really saw the heart of the American people in that period of time when we were appealing for supplies and personnel. It just came. There were days when we didn't know where we were going to get certain supplies that we needed or personnel that we needed to do specific jobs, but somehow the Lord provided, and it just happened. It came.
After 2 months, the emergency phase of the disaster was drawing to a close, and a semblance of order returned to the lives of the people. But one great need still existed: permanent housing for hundreds of families now living in temporary shelter. The Salvation Army could not walk away. The people of Guatemala needed long-term aid, not only material help in the form of housing, but spiritual guidance and counseling. They needed someone at their side until they were back on their feet. And so the decision was made to offer the services of the Salvation Army for long-term rehabilitation. The offer was accepted, and Salvationists, along with hundreds of volunteers and other agencies, began construction of more than 500 houses and the town community center.
We are now in the Salvation Army's camp. Behind us, you see the Salvation Army flag, which was the first flag raised by the Salvation Army in Guatemala. And at that time, the work in Guatemala was designated as a permanent work that would remain here and continue to be a part of the Guatemalan scene for many, many years to come.
Who were these Salvation Army soldiers? They have already given us food and medicine. Would they help rebuild our village too? When I heard the sound of the block machine, I knew the answer.
We initially tried to find hand-operated block machines, which we could not locate quickly, and through an advisory board member in Chicago, learned of the Columbia Machine Company that had a machine that we could purchase economically, and we explored it and found out it was practical and possible to get the machine, and it could be brought down the west coast and into Tecpan to make the cement block we needed to fulfill our commitment. And we started manufacturing cement block.
I never saw so many blocks. It was then that I learned from a new friend, Capitan Guerra, that I too could have a new house if I worked for it.
En primer lugar, la familia debería
A family
ser
can
una
qualify
familia
for a house if they are poor
económicos.
and are willing to work for 40 days rebuilding the town. Then the Salvation Army will officially present them with a house.
Mr. Dave Van Sice came from the United States like many of the soldiers. There was much to learn and many of us to teach.
Right now we've got about 130 workers that are working for us, and I'd say probably 100 of them have received a house. But a lot of the workers worked 40 days, received their house, and then went back to their old jobs, farming or tailoring or some other occupation that they had, but they did put in the 40 days.
It was during the time of the building that I felt I was changing. At first, working with the Salvation Army was strange. Each of them had his own job, but they all worked together. They taught us how to organize our jobs and work hard. Every morning, we would start to build again. Capitan Guerra told me that working for the Lord made them strong to do a big job. Tecpan began to change. As the machines from the United States made the blocks, more and more houses were being built. The old destroyed houses were being replaced.
We had an engineering firm out of Great Neck, New York, Schumacher Farrell, who came down at their own expense, met with the people in Tecpan, examined the kind of housing they had previously had, and came up with a plan for a model house, which was approximately the same size and would fit in with the culture of the country.
At first, the new houses seemed strange, but as we learned the skills to build them, as they grew from the ground to the roof by our own hands, their construction made sense. Many of the men of the village became skilled at making the foundation or laying the blocks. The new houses are built with metal bars in between the blocks to make them strong, and the new roofs are much lighter than the old tiles. I remember how terrible it was that night of February the 4th. The adobe walls crumbled, and the heavy roof tiles killed many people when they fell. The Salvation Army taught us many things, but we taught them too. We taught them how to cook Guatemalan food, and we showed them how to work long days under the hot sun. I was learning a new way of life from the soldiers, but some things stay the same, like market day. Every Thursday when Naomi and Charo go to the market, I go with them to buy things. Captain Guerra's wife, who is also a soldier, helped us make a list of things we need most. In the market, you can see the faces of Tecpan. The Guatemaltecos are descended from the Mayan Indians who lived in this land hundreds of years ago. We are good weavers, and our textiles are used to make colorful clothing. We live in mountains that are over a mile high. We farm small pieces of land to grow corn, wheat, fruit, and coffee. Then we take them to the market to trade. This is the village life in Tecpan. The life in the village has been the same for many years, but in the years since the earthquake, I have seen many changes in myself. The Salvation Army is teaching me a new way to live, a way to work for God and for His people too. While I was working at my own house, I was also helping to build the biggest and the most beautiful building in the village. It was the Church of the Salvation Army itself, and next to it was the new house of Captain Guerra and his wife. I was proud of my work on the church, and every day I wondered if I could be a soldier too, like Mr. McBride.
My job has been to build this church and the parsonage next door. The colony that surrounds this church, the number of houses is 70, and it was built because there were so many people in the town that did not own land and were only renting houses, therefore had no house or no land, and these houses are being made available if they can qualify, and of course the way you qualify is by not having any money to buy land of your own. It's been very gratifying to have some Americans and Canadians come down as volunteers to help us, but mainly our workforce has come right from Tecpan.
Could I be a soldier in this army? My friends and I were learning about the ways of the Lord from my friend Capitan Guerra. He was teaching to all of us who wanted to learn.
Actualmente, dentro de las actividades del cuerpo del Ejército de
Actually,
Salvación,
the Salvation Army is active in much more than just building the houses of Tecpan. On Sunday morning, we have meetings of holiness for the adults and the young men and women. At the same time, my wife holds classes for the small children.
At these meetings, we could talk about the things I was feeling. A soldier gets his strength from the Lord. That is what the songs were saying. My mother goes to the women's meetings to learn and pray and sing. The Salvation Army touches all our lives, and our meetings are just a small part of a great army.
It is our hope that the Salvation Army will continue to be a permanent establishment here. We are now located in our Salvation Army Chapel in Guatemala City. In this place, we now have housed a full Salvation Army Corps program, complete with Home League, and also a daycare center, which has a capacity for 30 children.
The Salvation Army soldiers bring happiness to all ages. Sometimes I will walk in the hills outside of Tecpan and think of the many things the Salvation Army and my village have done together. If I was a soldier, I could keep working in the Spirit of the Lord. Most of the houses are finished now. I have seen many ceremonies when a home is presented and the blessing is given. It's a wonderful time. There is singing and the neighbors crowd around to see. Having a new house is like starting a new life. Soon my own house will be dedicated. I earned my house. When the Salvation Army came, my friend Miguel and I worked to help them build. We also helped them to learn the ways of Tecpan. Now the house is ours. When the time came for our house to be blessed, my mother cooked for Capitan Guerra and all the neighbors. I will save this picture of my father in front of the house. I was very proud. Now the biggest ceremony of all was going to happen. El presidente of Guatemala flew from La Capital to see the new Tecpan built from the ruins. El presidente is a great man, but I know he was amazed at the change in our town. He knows better than anyone the sadness of the terremoto that destroyed more than 1 million homes in Guatemala. But Tecpan stood up again, and he saw it in the smiles of all my friends.
We meet today in the spirit of brotherhood, united in friendship and service to our fellow man. Mr. President, the Salvation Army has fulfilled its commitment, and I'm happy to present to you today the results of this effort. And by this symbolic key, on behalf of the Salvation Army and all of the agencies who worked with us, this is the key that has opened the door to over not just 500 homes, but 524 homes.
El presidente remembered he had seen our village when we were almost hopeless. It was only a year ago.
Hoy estamos nuevamente acá con ustedes en Tecpan.
Now, we are here once more with you in Tecpan for this ceremony to give these houses that are built by the Salvation Army. The Salvation Army was one of the first international institutions that came to Guatemala 48 hours after the hardest and most difficult time, the time of so much sorrow and so much pain.
After his speech to us, El Presidente went to the houses to look at them more closely. He was smiling at what he saw. Then he cut the ribbon of the new community center. When he finally left, I know that El Presidente thought Tecpan was one of the finest towns in Guatemala. El Presidente praised the Salvation Army for its work. I knew then that I wanted to be a soldier. Now it is time to celebrate the opening of the new church. For me, this was the most special time of all. For a year, I worked with the soldiers of the Salvation Army. They taught me a new way of life, and I helped them build this church.
Osmar de Roman Pinzon.
Now I am a soldier of the Salvation Army.
was a big project to come into a place where there was absolutely no industry, build 500 homes, teach the men everything from how to use a shovel to operate a complicated block machine. Now that it's all over, you feel kind of relieved and sad and happy at the same time. It's kind of hard to explain. Tell them I'm not very good at making speeches.
No es muy bueno para los discursos, dice.
But I just like to say what's in my heart right now.
Solo le gustaría decir lo que siente en este momento.
Tell them I love each and every one of these guys an awful lot.
Dice que los quiere mucho a todos y a cada uno de ustedes.
I've learned an awful lot while I'm here.
He aprendido mucho estando aquí.
And I hope they've learned a lot while I've been here.
Y espero que ustedes hayan aprendido bastante también.
I hope they take what they've learned and continue using it through their life.
Espero que se les quede lo que han aprendido y lo que continúen usando por el resto de sus vidas.
I'd like to shake each hand before I leave now.
Le gustaría darle la mano a cada uno antes de irse.
Gracias, don David. Ahí se cuida por allá.
In the name of everybody that we are at the house, they believe that you really rebuilt Tecpan.
En mi opinión personal, creo que la ayuda que prestó el Ejército de Salvación fue la mejor ayuda que pudo llegar del extranjero a Guatemala.
In my opinion, the help that the Salvation Army gave us is the best help we could ever get.
I've worked with them and I've yelled at them and I've praised them and I've thanked them and we've laughed together and we've cried together and we've been happy together. We've had a lot of disappointments together and I really love each one of them an awful, awful lot. And I'm really going to miss them, I really am.
Tecpan will never be the same. We are a new town. And the Salvation Army will never be the same. They know the heart of the Guatemaltecos, and they learn how to build a town.
It's really a thrill to be able to drive down the streets of Tecpan, and I don't think there's a street that doesn't have a house on it of ours. And to drive down and just to see them and to see the people living in them, and the kids running in and out of them.
I think that to be a soldier, I will be able to serve the Lord better and bring help to the people of Tecpan. Now many of us are soldiers, and we will continue to build the town of Tecpan. The nightmare of Terremoto is over, and I will never forget what the Salvation Army has done for me. I have become a man and a soldier of the Lord.